Hi, I'm Dawn and this is where Shabby meets Bling. It is not any longer Christmas, it is spring, so people get out there and get your Christmas stuff out of the yard and put it away so it's more special next year. Think spring, it's time to think spring. So I am going today to take junk, seriously junk, and I'm going to attempt to turn it into a gem. I'm going to put some mismatched, junky, broken, beat up items together and hopefully come out with something that is attractive and very appealing and very spring-like. Let's go.
The first item I'm using for this project is a broken urn, and I bought it at a thrift shop, already broken, with the hopes of mending it. And hopefully E7000 will do the trick.
I am so happy that my beautiful broken urn is no longer broken. It glued up nicely. So we can continue with this project.
And now enter a very inexpensive floral foam wreath. I'm using painter's tape to mark out a pattern and scoring either side and then moving the tape all the way around the perimeter to continue the pattern. Once my pattern is completed, I'm going to start sculpting in wedge shapes to the center of each scored line to continue forming my pattern all the way around every score line, all the way around the wreath. Now I am taking some sandpaper to make it all smooth. I'm getting every little bit so it's smooth and rounded. And you may kind of have an idea at this point what this is going to be. We'll see if you're right. It's very important that the curved edges are very smooth and rounded for the final look of what this is going to be. And the emery board helps me get into the little crevices. And now we have a base which is meant for a hurricane to make an arrangement with. And this little gem has been sitting in my garage for probably 20 years. So time to use it. Let's saw off the feet, because I do need a flat surface here. So I've cut off all 3 feet, and then we go to create the pattern. And I'm simply using my handy dandy emery board as a guide because I didn't want to go find a straight edge and it was handy. So I'm going to all the way around mark this pattern, just a straight line up and down all the way around. And now, same process here. I am just creating a little wedge every place that I have indicated I want my pattern to be. As you can see, I've gone all the way around, and now we're repeating the same process we did on the wreath with this foam base. I am just sanding my pattern smooth. Now that both of our foam items have been sculpted the way I want them to be, I'm going to seal them with some paint. And the paint does not matter at this point. I'm just sealing the pores because of what we're eventually going to do to these things. So I'm using some very, very pretty yellow paint that was for a very specific project at one time. And I had a lot of it left. So I'm just going to take this paint and I am going to cover both of the foam items completely. And now it's the wreath's turn. And once again, I'm making sure all my surfaces are covered. And here's what it looks like totally painted. I will give it a second coat too. Blue says, yes, ma, give it a second coat, ma. It's amazing he doesn't get in the paint. We are going to use PL300 foam board caulk to join our 2 pieces together. I've prepared my tube by opening it and poking a hole, and now I'm loading it into the gun. You have to make sure you have a really good bond. We don't want any gaps. So I am adhering the wreath to what was the bottom of that hurricane arrangement base. It's very important that you make sure you're centered as you go and as you continue to caulk all the way around. Use your finger to smooth the caulk. If you've not used caulk, always have a wet rag by you and dampen your finger, and then you can smooth the caulk easel. Now we flipped it over and we're giving it a coat on the back side, the upside down side, the bottom side. And we want to make sure, once again, we have no gaps. Use your finger, clean up your mess, and so on. I did create some basic floral pins out of wire, a really nice, decent thick gauge wire, to make sure that the top of my, I think you can see it now, basket. The rim of my basket does not come apart from the bottom of my basket, just a little more security. The foam is very strong, that foam caulk, but I just want to make sure. And here we have item number 4, an egg from last year's after Easter sale. And I'm drilling a hole in this, in the bottom of it, because this is part of our end product as well. We also need a hole in the top, and it has to be straight. So I'm being very careful. I'm marking a little dot, and we're gonna drill through the top of it as well. Yep, more components. This is a styrofoam, some kind of weird Christmas ornament that I got at a resale shop, and just a basic styrofoam ball, and I'm going to marry these two items together. Once I've created a cavity big enough for the bottom of this weird styrofoam ornament, I am going to glue it inside of my styrofoam ball. The bottom also needs a hole, so I'm gonna just mark a little place, and this is weird, but I'm gonna use my drill because I want a really straight, narrow line, hole I should say, right in the middle. And there it is. And of course, this gets a layer of paint as well, probably 2 or 3 coats. We also need a hole in the bottom of our basket. It needs to be centered and it needs to be clean. So I'm measuring it, and once again, I'm going to use the drill to make this hole happen.
Now that all of our broken, junky, mismatched items have been prepared and ready, and it's time to assemble them.
Here's my last piece of junk. It's actually a lawn ornament that's supposed to be solar and lights up. Doesn't work, is broken, but I thought for $1 resale, it had potential. The solar lawn ornament has been cut down for a metal rod to be inserted through my items. Here's a look at the basic construction, all assembled, all of our broken and old junky pieces put together as a spring topiary. And now, let's paint! One of my favorite things. I love spray paint. I'm using a Rust-Oleum, and this is a base coat. And I am just going to hit the whole thing all over at least twice to seal everything before we do the real fun part of this project. Time to mix the ingredients for the final coat of that topiary. I'm using landscape sand, or some people know it as play sand, and I'm using some white sand, and I'm going to use some tan sand. So 3 different combos. Far more of the landscape sand than anything else. This is the texture I'm trying to recreate, sandstone. We want our topiary to look like a sandstone topiary. I'm using a Rust-Oleum satin smoky beige paint to put my layer of paint all over, and while it's wet, it's very important you do this while it's wet, and then you sprinkle our sand mixture over top of it, and it will adhere. And you just keep repeating this process over and over until you get as many layers as you want to get the look you want. I did a total of 3 coats over every bit of it, even the urn, which also, since the urn was initially broken, will help keep it nice and sturdy and firm. And now you get a look to see what it looks like. This is after coat number 2. I do come in after this and add a 3rd coat. Now I'm quickly sculpting a couple of styrofoam items to fill the gap in between my top finial and the egg, and then the bottom of the egg and the basket itself. The part that I'm sculpting for beneath the egg is kind of a stylized carrot. I left the styrofoam in the bottom of my topiary so that I can actually place an arrangement, a spring arrangement inside. starting with some beautiful moss. The forest moss. This is called a lot of different things, but I call it forest moss. And then I'm going to add some beautiful flowers from Hobby Lobby. These things look so real. They have the best flowers, they truly do. And I'm also going to add some ivy that I got for $1 at a recent thrifting shopping trip. I start by picking my stems, and then I'll start arranging. To get floral arrangements exactly like you want them, it takes time. And sometimes you have to rearrange them once you get them in a certain place, and you may not like them. So take your time, which is funny to say because this is going at fast speed. I'm just going to add a few more touches and we're done.
Let's take a look at our final product.
Remember how we started with a bunch of random items, some broken, some old, and some thrifted. And this is where we ended up with a beautiful spring arrangement, all put together in a sandstone topiary. I even added a little rusty metal bird and a real bird's nest. So springy. Here you get a really good look at that sandstone texture. If you decide to just keep it as a topiary and not add the arrangement, you can add a finish coat to it and actually put it outside. Styrofoam is very durable. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a like, give it that thumbs up, share it with your family and friends. And don't forget to support the channel by subscribing. Ring the bell, you'll get notifications of all my new and upcoming videos. And for now, this is Dawn with Shabby Meets Bling. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.